how SpaceX will use its new rocket Starship, and what is the big purpose behind Starship. So, to understand how the Starship will be used, we first need to look at how it has been built. At launch, the spacecraft will sit atop a rocket booster called the Super Heavy. The Super Heavy is a Methalox rocket stage intended to serve as the first stage of SpaceX's fully reusable Super Heavy lift launch vehicle. It is 70 meters tall and is powered by 29 Raptor engines on initial flights and 32 later this year. Recent news coming out of SpaceX suggests that the first launch of Super Heavy and the first orbital flight of the Starship system may just be a couple of weeks away. Super Heavy will be filled with 3,400 tons of a cryogenic Methalox and should achieve more than 70 meganewtons of maximum thrust. The rocket will be able to lift at least 100 tons of payload and possibly as much as 150 tons to low Earth orbit. This will make the Super Heavy more powerful than the massive Saturn launcher used for the Apollo moon mission in the 1960s and 1970s. In the middle of the vehicle, you have the propellant tanks that feed fuel, methane, and liquid oxygen to the Raptors. Methane is the fuel, and oxygen acts as the chemical that makes the fuel burn. The choice of fuel is unusual for rocket engines, but methane does produce plenty of thrust, and it also works with the company's design. Musk has said that the methane can be synthesized on Mars by using the water and high carbon dioxide in the air. Refueling on Mars would be an essential game-changer, as this would make the tree self-sufficient and cost-effective. Now the combined system will stand 120 meters tall and is also referred to as the Starship. Let us take a look at the spacecraft. With this nose cone and landing finds, the stainless steel vehicle resembles the rocket ship from the golden age of science fiction. At the radar of this 50-meter ship are 6 highly efficient Raptor engines, which were developed over the course of a decade by SpaceX. The combustion takes place in stages, and the engine's design cuts the amount of propellant that is wasted. As the Starship launches, it will begin to pitch over towards the intended orbit. Once it enters space, the upper part will detach and the Super Heavy will fall back towards the Earth. With the design of the rocket covered, we can finally move on to the uses. Have you guys heard about Project Artemis? Well, no one has been to the moon since 1972, but now NASA plans to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon. 3 companies were initially given the go-ahead to prepare designs for Project Artemis, namely SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Dynetics. However, a few months back, SpaceX was given the green light on building a lunar lander. The space agency awarded SpaceX with a $2.89 billion contract to modify the Starship into something capable of taking astronauts to the surface of the moon. The final goal of Project Artemis is to set up a permanent human presence on the moon. But due to the ongoing tussle with Blue Origin, the project has been halted and might once again begin from November 2021. You can learn more about this from one of our other videos. The version of Starship tailored for Artemis flights would not possess the heat shield or flaps that are necessary for a return journey to Earth. Instead, the Starship human landing system would remain in space after its initial launch from Earth, to be used for multiple trips between lunar orbit and the moon's surface. This is one thing that we must consider, and it is that the Artemis project isn't the final goal of SpaceX. Instead, it should be regarded as a stepping stone towards their ultimate goal of making humanity multiplanetary. The Artemis project will provide SpaceX to test run their plans and programs for the flight to Mars. It shouldn't come as a surprise to you guys when we tell you that Musk wants to take the human race to Mars. The entire Starship project is geared towards that outcome. A flight to Mars and back could take to 9 months, and Musk has been looking to install around 40 cabins in the payload area near the front of the upper stage of the ship. According to Musk, about 5 to 6 people could fit in these cabins if you want to fill the ship to capacity, but a more realistic number would be around 2 to 3 people. This means that you would be able to see around 100 people per flight to Mars. The payload bay would also host common areas, storage space, a galley, and a shelter where people could gather to shield themselves from solar storms. Another use of Starship would be carrying cargo into space, with a payload capacity of around 100 tons. The rocket will be able to resupply the International Space Station with ease. SpaceX is already launching satellites for government and private contractors. So if you factor in the Starship, you might see a substantial increase in the number of satellites in space. You may also have heard about Starlink. It's a new satellite internet service for Earth. The aim of this project is to provide internet all over the globe. However, this would require a network of at least 12,000 satellites. Currently, Falcon 9 has been launching satellites, but due to its smaller size, it has the capacity to carry only 60 Starlink satellites at a time. The company plans to extend that to full of 42,000 one day. So that means it would require around 700 launches, which is no small feat. So the company is planning to use the Starship to launch the Starlink satellites, as it carry around 400 of them at a time. This was substantially reducing the time and maybe even the cost of setting up Starlink. Starship will be also used in Earth-to-Earth transporting system. Have you ever thought that traditional means of conveyance were slow? Well, you won't have to worry about any such thing once the SpaceX Starship is up and running. The company plans to take a bite out of the commercial airline industry by transporting travelers from place to place on Earth. The company envisions going from Sydney to Singapore in 31 minutes and from LA to Toronto in just 24 minutes. It takes us more than 30 minutes to reach our office, and SpaceX is going to go from country to country in half that time. Just amazing. Shorter distances may not even require the booster rocket, as the spacecraft could travel on its own, powered by 6 Raptor engines. Finally, Musk has already mentioned that he won't just settle for Mars. The Starship will be modified over the years to take humanity throughout the solar system, even to mighty gas giants like Jupiter. But that is an extended goal that will be worked after humanity has reached Mars. If you are interested in more content related to Starship, we invite you to watch our previous video in which we answer the questions, what's inside Starship?